Greetings to everyone, and welcome to episode 2 of The Only Kid with a Camera. I am having such a great time putting these shows together, and if you're enjoying this little journey that I'm taking, then please hit subscribe, and you'll receive notice with every new episode I put out. And also check out my website. I'm on Twitter, and I'm really hoping to kind of create a little community of people that enjoy this kind of trip back into time and revisiting all the cool things, all the incredible movies, Star Wars, Jaws, everything that happened in the 70s. It was such a time of change and such amazing things that happened in pop culture and fun stuff that happened. So if you're enjoying this, subscribe and we'll move on forward together. So I'm going to pick up from after we went to Glendale, and I did pick up my Darth Vader mask, which was an incredible experience. I put the mask on and basically took the rest of our long family vacation to Disneyland and San Francisco and Hollywood with the Star Wars mask on, with the Darth Vader mask on. At one point, my dad actually said to me, "John, what are you going to do when you grow up? Be a Star Wars?" That's an actual quote from my father. My parents knew I was totally obsessed, and they could see the writing on the wall. So after we did go to Glendale, we ended up going to Hollywood, actually was next. We went to Universal Studios, of course, which most people do. And Universal Studios had some really cool stuff in the 1970s, and I actually have really awesome Super 8 films of my visit to Universal Studios in August of 1977, and I'm going to feature that in a future episode. But after we went to Universal Studios, we ended up going to Graumans Chinese Theater, which, as any film fan knows, and probably most Star Wars fans know, that was basically the place in Hollywood to go see Star Wars. It's a legendary theater. It's an amazing theater. And we went there just like literally days after they had held this huge celebration there right in the front of Graumans Chinese Theater. And of course, I think most of you know that that's the famous theater in Hollywood where stars from the past and the present, I don't know if they do it anymore, but they would come and then they would put their handprints in the cement there and sign their name. Well, I happened to go there just days, unfortunately, I wish I'd been there, but just days after they did that celebration at Graumans Chinese Theater. And they had C-3PO, R2-D2, Darth Vader. And anyway, I actually took some film of that, and I'm going to show you that now. This is basically just Graumans Chinese Theater, the way it was decked out at that time period. And it was raining, which was so weird because they say it never rains in LA or in California, but it was raining this day, so I had to put a coat over my camera, over my head and my camera, which you'll see a little bit in the footage. And then here's footage of the actual prints that were made of C-3PO, R2-D2, Darth Vader. They had signed their names in the cement. Oh man, how I wish I had been there. This is some footage I shot off of my television of a program that was on TV called The Making of Star Wars. And this actually shows footage from that event. That was a huge, big deal when they started advertising that was going to be on TV, and everyone was so excited because we were going to get to see not only, scenes about the Star Wars phenomenon, but mainly we were going to actually get to see scenes from Star Wars on TV for the first time. I basically just carried on with my Star Wars obsession with my Darth Vader mask on pretty much anytime I could wear it, including at school. I made this, I think, a really cool costume. It was totally handmade. I made it specifically to wear at school on Halloween. At that time, I was like one of the fat kids in school, and I was ridiculed. I was bullied relentlessly on the school bus, Bullies would every day taunt me and ridicule me. And of course, those guys are losers now, but I don't know what they are now. But anyway, I haven't gotten any calls of apology, which would be kind of cool if they did that. I'm not holding my breath. So, Halloween comes. It's like, okay, I'm going to go and really make an impression at school with my Darth Vader mask, which is just, none of these kids had seen these masks, and they were totally freaked out. And I was like just riding high on all this adulation I was getting for making this costume. So I go to school all day long. People are talking to me, asking me questions, and I was like kind of like the celebrity at school that day. And that was awesome, especially for a kid that was normally getting bullied every day. So anyway, I make it through the day and I'm really feeling great, just really feeling great. And then I get on the school bus to go home, and I'm kind of worried because, this one bully that sat in the back of the bus and always made fun of me was going to be there. And I thought, well, maybe I'll get some, respect from him today. But sure enough, I get up on the bus. First words out of his mouth were, quote, unquote, "That's the fattest Darth Vader I've ever seen." But what was different about this day was that he was the only one laughing. No one else was laughing, which they normally would. So I was still like, okay, well, I'm cool and I don't care what he thinks. This is cool and I know it's cool. So forget him. And then interestingly, a couple of, I think it was the next week, I got a call from our local newspaper, and there was this reporter that wanted to come out and interview me. Basically, he had heard from somewhere, someone had told him that, hey, this kid's like a Star Wars fanatic. He's seen Star Wars like 10 times. And so I get this call from this reporter, and he says he wants to come to my house and interview me. And sure enough, he does. He brings out this camera crew, and they take these photographs of me. I mean, check this out. I'm in the newspaper, and if you look to the left of the top photo, you'll see this quote: "I enjoyed it the most the 15th time because I really listened to it." And I was totally sincere when I said that. The 15th time that I saw Star Wars in the theater, it really hit me on a deeper level. I started really cluing in to some of the deeper plot points and really kind of understanding what this whole rebellion was about and what their mission was. And it really did impact me, so much so that I was telling him that, and I remember telling my friends that. As I've been searching through all my archives, which are vast, I found a couple of really cool recordings. This was recorded on the 5th time that I went to see Star Wars. And by that time, I was so obsessed, I did something I'd never done before. I snuck in a little cassette tape recorder into the movie theater and recorded the entire movie. And I used to listen to this tape constantly, all day long, all night long. Even on my paper route, I'd carry my tape recorder with me I'd have it up on my shoulder, blasting into my ear. So this recording is just kind of like right as the movie's ending. You'll hear a little bit of the audience at the end. And I say, "The end." And then I start actually reading the credits. So check this out.
Peter Cushing, Alec Guinness, Anthony Daniels, Kenny Baker, Chewbacca's Peter Mayhew, Darth Vader, David Prowse, Uncle Owen. What you have just been listening to is taped from the theater, the UA Cinema 150, where I went to Star Wars. At this time, I've now seen it 5 times. I'll probably see it at least 7 or 8 times. This has got to be the best movie I've ever seen.
Within the first year of Star Wars playing, I saw it 40 times, taking a bus to the theater to watch Star Wars as a 13-year-old kid. I think it's ample proof that I was indeed the first Star Wars nerd on the face of the earth. Anyway, I'm really happy to have these recordings. They really capture just what this time was like. Such a neat time when they'd watch this movie, they'd react to every little joke, every little gesture, every little thing that was meant to make us laugh. Everybody laughed, and it was just such a great communal experience. The other recording I found is me. Apparently this was like a promotion or an advertisement for the Star Wars Marvel Comics series, and this is me just reading the little promotional blurb about Star Wars and that Marvel was had released this comic book series.
6 years ago, George Lucas, the creator of American Graffiti, began his first draft of the script of a film that is certain to become a milestone in the space fantasy film genre. Thus, it is perhaps appropriate that Marvel Comics is going to take 6 monthly issues of this Star Wars comic magazine to adapt the movie into illustrated form. Anything less than approximately 100 pages would do little to the justice.
This is a recording at a science fiction enthusiasts event in Seattle. It was basically for fans of Star Trek, of Star Wars, but really it was because of what was happening in our culture with regarding Star Wars. It was a huge event. I mean, it was packed, thousands and thousands of people. And Douglas Trumbull was there representing Close Encounters, but the reason I went is because John Dykstra was there and he spoke, and I recorded all of this. And this is a part in the Q&A section where I asked Douglas Trumbull what he thought in comparing the special effects of Close Encounters to Star Wars.
How would you compare the special effects of Close Encounters to the special effects of Star Wars?
Well, apples and oranges. I would like to say that I greatly admire the work that was done on Star Wars. A lot of my very best friends worked on that picture for a long time. They really are totally different and not to be compared. I think it was unfortunate they were both made in the same year.
That is so funny, because listening back to it, it embarrasses me even now that I would ask such a silly question. And I'm sure all the adults in there were thinking, come on, kid, that's a really dumb question. But, that's what I asked him, and he answered quite appropriately. Another thing that happened around that time was Ken Films, this little company, used to release these Super 8, what they called selected scenes from famous movies or cartoons or whatever. You could go to even like a place like Kmart in those days, and they'd have this selection of these reels of movies that you could buy. And I had purchased a lot of them because I was into making movies. I had a Super 8 movie projector. And when I found out that they were going to release Star Wars on Super 8, I was just like, what? You're joking. So, of course, I freaked out, had to make a million calls to find out exactly what's coming out and when they're going to be released and everything, being the obsessed person I was. Anyway, so Ken Films started releasing these digest or selected scenes versions of Star Wars. Now, the first one that came out was just like a 200-foot reel, and it only had about, I think it was 8 minutes of footage. And the version I bought was in black and white with subtitles because I didn't have a sound projector at that time. My friend Bruce and I, we went and bought this. We could not wait to get it home. And just to project Star Wars in your own room, and there was only like 2 scenes. There was a scene where Ben Kenobi gives Luke the lightsaber, and then it jumps ahead to the TIE fighter battle when they had just escaped from the Death Star. But it was like Star Wars. It was black and white with no sound, but it was still so cool. And a really funny thing that we did is my friend Bruce and I, we used to take a cassette recorder and create our own soundtracks for these movies, and this is like a little bit of one of the things we did.
Star Wars! That reminds me, I have something here for you. Your father wanted me to give this to you, but your uncle wouldn't allow it. He thought you might follow old Obi-Wan on some damn fool crusade like your father did. Sir, if you won't be needing me now, I'll close down for the while. Whoa! an elegant weapon. Before the dark times, before the Empire. How did my father die? A young Jedi named Darth Vader. Who was a pupil of mine until he turned to evil. He murdered and betrayed your father. The Force is something that is in all living things, and it surrounds us. And it makes us tired and sick. Now let's see if we can figure out what you are, my little friend, and where you came from. Gibbon Kenobi, I want you to come and save me, because I'm on the Death Star and I'm dying. Please save me now. I need help because my dad is sick and he can't come and help. Me. I stored some plans for my medicine, for my cough syrup in this R2 unit. You must learn the ways of the Force if you are going to come to me to Alderaan. Alderaan? I'm not going to Alderaan. I have work to do. I'm in heck as it is. She needs your help, Luke. She needs your help. I'm getting too old for this sort of thing. Listen! I can't get involved! I got work to do! Said that I give her my favorite name. Do better now.
I love listening to that recording of Bruce and I. But ultimately, I started getting really frustrated with the fact that there was no sound. And so I went out and I talked to my parents, and they ended up making a way for me to get a really nice Super 8 sound movie projector, which I should have gotten a long time ago, really, because of the kind of filmmaker that I was by that point. Anyway, I got this Bolex Super 8 movie projector, and that made me sort of graduate up to the next level in terms of the Super 8 Star Wars reels that I could buy. What I ended up doing was buying an upgrade. It was the same scenes, the same two main scenes from Star Wars, but it had sound. And that was a whole nother level. And it was just like my friends would come over and watch it. People would ask me to come over to my house after school to watch it. You know, that wasn't enough. So I had to jump up to the next level, which was a 400-foot reel. And it was color, it was sound, and it was double the size of the smaller reel. So this one had the whole opening, and it had a lot of really amazing scenes. And that's when I came up with the brilliant idea of opening my own little movie theater in my room. And I'm so thankful to have this photograph. This is later. This is years later, actually, after I had become a Beatles fan and a musician. But I still had that projector sitting on the chair. So I'd have kids come in. I'd charge them 25 cents. And they'd come in over and over and over again to watch this Star Wars film. And believe it or not, I made a pretty decent kind of collection of money. And of course, all of that money went right back into buying more Star Wars stuff. That's all I had a paper out by then, which I had gotten just for that purpose. But this was now more money coming in to feed my Star Wars obsession. So that wraps up this episode of my Star Wars Phenomenon series. And on Friday, the 23rd of December, I'm going to do my third and final installment, which is going to be titled The First Star Wars Christmas. I'm not only going to talk about Christmas, of course, but I'm going to talk about all of the cool merchandise and collectibles, and not just the standard stuff you could buy in the stores. I went deep and I bought some really cool stuff that I'm going to talk about. But I'm also going to discuss, of course, the Kenner Toys debacle and the early bird certificate and all of that. So I hope you'll come back and join me for that final episode of the Star Wars Phenomenon. Once again, this is John Blackstone. This is the only kid with a camera. Please subscribe and join our little community as we continue to celebrate all of the awesome stuff that happened in the 70s.